Welcome back to Enlightened World Network's One with the Earth launch party. This has been so much fun. Oh my goodness, we have more amazing presenters. I am so excited to introduce to you Lisa Berry and her co-host Cheryl Ivaniski. Lisa is an expert in breathing life into the dreams of people wanting to create a lifestyle love story for themselves. I can't wait to hear more about that. She's an international show host, international bestselling author, and creator, producer, and trainer of podcast prosperity mentorship. And as a registered holistic nutritionist, certified life coach, and creator of Dating Your Diet, Lisa holds space for her clients to grow, then glow by falling in love with the right food. And you can catch Lisa Berry's Dating Your Diet series on Enlightened World Network's Enlightened Living channel. I think that's Thursdays. I don't have all the info, but you can go to the page and check it out. And Cheryl is a holistic wellness strategist and also an international bestselling author. I'm sorry, my notes are a little bit jumbled here, so I'll let you share anything else that you'd like to share about Cheryl. Welcome, ladies. I'm so glad to be able to welcome you here to One with the Earth.
Hello, thank you. And yes, Cheryl, we have a list of introductions for Cheryl that I'll take care of on my end because it was too much. She just does everything.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, ladies. I can't wait to see what you're bringing to our show today.
Thank you. Thank you. Are we? Oh, all right. There we go. Oh, Cheryl, I'm so excited to share this time with you. I'm going to jump in and play host now as I have Cheryl's my beautiful co-host. And again, yes, thank you everybody for tuning into the launch of this beautiful new channel. Cheryl, there's if you could share, actually, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and share with people, because not super introduce yourself, but introduce in the way that you have just made such an impact on wellness and health for so many people for so many years, because of your own personal story. And that's why I'm so happy to have you here doing this show specifically today with the Earth. And if you would share just a little bit about, you can blend in your story and what you do, because you have such an impact, and that's what the world does. We have an impact.
Well, thank you. That's awesome, Lisa. Well, it's really great because how we met actually was through our common interest in health and healing as naturally as possible. And so my passion is in that. It's in health and healing. And it's really about, and what's wonderful today is about grounding and earthing. It's really great because that's an area that maybe not a lot of people, put a conscious effort of thinking about, right? But the reason I'm so interested in holistic and natural medicine and helping others is because I was born into a family where there is a specific chronic disease which every generation has experienced. And it's cost them loss of life and many other complications of quality of life along the way. And so I thought I had a pretty good handle on what that was, being traditionally trained and licensed, and then being naturally trained and licensed. But you know how it's funny? Like you don't really 100% get it until you experience it yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And so when something like that happens, then you really get it. So, just over 25 years ago, when I was diagnosed as a result of an acute illness coming on from out of the blue, I found out that, how serious it was when I was in a coma and didn't even know it until I had woken up days later. So that's how acute something can be. So I've really committed my learning and my research and my craft to helping people with learning how to enhance their immune systems to avoid disease in the first place. But I work a lot with people who have diabetes, no matter what type it is, pre-diabetes, type 1 or type 2, because it affects the entire body and it's the world's largest pandemic. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for saying that. And when you said about, until we experience something, we might know about it, hear about it, learn about it. We can even sometimes teach about it, but from a certain level. And what I love about you sharing that is, I'm going to blend this right now with the earth, because we can live on the planet, we can walk through, our pathways and our things, but are we experiencing earth? Are we experiencing it? And do we know the beauties and the healing power of the earth itself in exactly the conditions that you just said? We're talking diabetes was why I really reached out to you. And I titled this, our fun share here with everybody, grounding the sugar spikes, trying to keeping them low, because sugar plays such a huge role in our lives. Oh, and something else you mentioned, Cheryl, you said about pre-diabetic,
Right.
because we could be pre anything, but we don't know. And so can I jump in and to ask you right away about inflammation and diabetes? For those who don't know, or those who are just exploring and wondering, like, hey, wait a second, diabetes, I'm thinking sugar, I'm thinking, certain, like, just, yeah, insulin. Why would we be talking about inflammation? If you
Well, that's a great question. And there are some things that are subtle, some things that a little bit every day, and then we don't realize it until one day because it seems invisible. You can't really touch it exactly, can still get by. But I'll tell you, the reason that this is so important, especially for people with diabetes, is because when blood sugar levels are even slightly elevated, just slightly elevated, above normal, then internal inflammation is happening all throughout the bloodstream. So it affects every tissue, cell, and organ and system. So it's not just a little bit, it's significant. And that happening every day, because diabetes is one of those things that's like a roller coaster and fluctuates all the time. So every time you eat, or every time you move, or every time you're stressed, or every time your grounding is off center, these all, and there's stress, and we don't always feel that internal stress, like, so it adds up. Yeah.
Oh, hey, I love that you said internal stress. And that's what we mostly think about. We think, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm unable to cope, or it's been difficult for for me to get a handle on my emotions.
Hmm.
But there's so much more stress on this earth. And that's why we are here to uplift it, heal it, help it. And when we're talking about that kind of stress beyond emotional stress, because I know you've named so many of them with me. Can we just identify them so that other people listening going, oh, wow, I never even thought about that. Because you said one to me and I went, ew, there's what on my carpet? So,
Oh, well, see, and these are the invisible types of stresses that we're not aware of, but there are so many stresses. I mean, I could name a few for you if you'd like. And I'll name the one that you're talking about, because now I know what you're talking about. So there are so many materials, so many chemicals, so many invisible things we don't see. So when so many people, and I watch this because I'm watching people, I'm observing them, right? Especially when I'm doing research. So I'm watching them, buy the plastic bottles out of the grocery stores that are sitting in the windows where the sun's coming in. Like, for example,
yes,
so
yes.
you know that those chemicals are leaching into the water, and people want to hydrate, but they're maybe not aware of the effects of what's in that water, or some of the other things that we were saying, the products that we use, just the self-care products that we use, from shampoo to soaps to detergents to dish soaps, and other things like the carpets that we walk on that are, that have the Teflon, and they in our cars, when they're heated in the summer, they emit those chemicals, and there's Teflon in our dashboards. Like, there's so many areas where there's those kind of chemicals and products that we're not always aware of them. And then of course there's the obvious ones like, pollution and exhaust fumes from outside, and environmental ones. But there's so many invisible stresses, including electromagnetic stresses.
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm just going to connect the dots here a little bit. Yeah, even more obvious for everyone is, okay, diabetes, sugar, grounding, chemicals. What's going on here? And it is because our bodies, when they are stressed in all these different ways, it creates a chain reaction. So the I want to show that as we are, I don't want to say hurting the earth because it sounds so horrible, but if we don't take care of the earth, it's the same as us not taking care of our bodies. And it is just about being informed and getting some information, because now you said, like, I was thinking Teflon, I'm thinking about, what do you mean? I already changed all my pans out. I've got to change my carpet. I've changed my makeup out. I've changed, like, how far are we going here? And fun thing to share, because you said about your car dash. Just this morning, my guy and I were talking about, we got a flyer to detail the car. It was super cheap. It was like $50. And I went, oh, I don't know. I don't want them actually doing that to the inside of my vinyl or whatever, or leather, whatever it's called, cleaning stuff, because I was like, ew, I don't know what they're using. Are they all natural? So these are choices that we're making, and they can stress us. So Cheryl, does it stress our bodies, and then we have inflammation, and then we get diabetes? Or are we having pre-diabetic and then causing the inflammation? Which,
That's a really good question. And it's not that it's one or the other. That happens both ways. And people also ask me, does lack of sleep contribute to, or is it a causative factor in diabetes? Or is diabetes a causative factor in sleep? And that works both ways too. Internal inflammation is when the body's out of balance. And I think the show today is really about what are some other things, like the grounding and the earthing, that people can do that can help to rebalance. Now, I don't know if I could show a really quick demo, but I would like to show a really quick demo if my demo will work on this. Of what a balance.
On us.
Would that be okay?
If you can, let's do it.
Because if this shows up, then you can see what a balanced internal blood sugar in the body looks like, and what internal inflammation looks like. All right, so let me see if you can see this.
Okay.
Can you see this?
Yes, it's a wand of sort.
It's a wand. And can you see how wonderful this is moving through it?
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
So this is normal. This is how our bloodstream should work without sugar in it. Okay. Would you like to see what it looks like if it's elevated by only 1 point?
Oh, by one? Oh,
just by one.
I have not seen this before. This is new.
No, you haven't. No. So if it's elevated just by 1, this is, just so you can see it. Can you start to see the difference here?
Yes.
See how slowly it's moving?
Actually, considerably.
Considerably. And that's just slightly above normal. Okay, so you can see that, right?
Wow.
Now, do you want to see what it's like if it's a few more above normal?
Almost, but not really. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Then I'll talk to you about what that looks like with internal inflammation. So,
okay. Wow. So we would be sluggish and lose energy because we're not getting oxygen. We're not delivering the nutrients to every one of those cells. So a sluggish blood system, lymphatic system, all that, our earth, when it's sluggish. Okay. So, oh gosh, do we want to see what inflammation? I don't know.
So this is what, yes. So exactly with everything you just said, so I'll just add on top of that. So when blood sugars are slightly elevated, we have an internal impact of inflammation, and our cells are screaming. And when we have higher than higher numbers, it almost like stagnates our cells. And what happens is that internal inflammation will capsize those cells, and it will not just age them and accelerate their aging, but it will actually kill some of them. And that's when complications accelerate. So we're all about avoiding that, right?
Yes, yes. And that's actually that point. See, I have these two images. I have these two movies playing in my head right now about our health and our blood and our inflammation. And I have the earth and the planet, and they're running simultaneously, because I'm imagining death. You said capsizing. So a death occurring, when it's so stagnant, it can't live. It needs movement. So this is a perfect segue to kind of move into movement. So I would think, if I was just a regular person thinking about sugars, I think, okay, well, stop eating the sugars, stop getting the spikes. And how do I ground? But movement is key as well. And it's
movement is key. Yeah.
On this earth. So let's jump into movement.
Sure. Sure, no problem. So yes, but as you did say, and it's not one thing, but there's a combination of things, and it's not like just one or two things you do with your lifestyle. It's your whole inclusive lifestyle that impacts your health. But when you're talking about movement, you can see, now that you've seen the visual, that you can see the lack of movement inside the body. And although our liver and our bodies and our pancreas and our muscles have always ready available glucose, um, so when we move, what we're able to do is amp up any sugar that's in the bloodstream to being usable by at least 20% more.
Oh, okay.
So that makes
Good
a
start.
significant difference. That makes a significant difference. So we want to be moving because that will help us with our insulin efficiency and will
Yeah.
help us to keep the bodies and the sugars moving out of the bloodstream and into the muscle so that they can be used and expended.
I think that's the thing. So if everybody could just imagine sugars, now we're thinking right now, we might be thinking refined sugar. So we're not always talking about refined sugars. We're talking about glucose in the body, and then it needs to keep moving. Guess what? If it stops moving, guess what it's doing? It's creating fats. It's settling into fats or muscles, and it's immobilizing them. So when it comes to moving the earth and our bodies, because we go in tandem, as the earth becomes, I don't want to say stagnant, but locked. Oh, that's the word I'm getting right now. I actually am getting it's locked. We're locking the earth and it wants to move. It wants to expand and breathe. Our bodies want to move.
Right.
How can we, so we're going to talk about grounding, and grounding not as implanted, right? But because we want to move. So
Right.
what are we talking about when we're saying, you know what, grounding can help with the effects that too much sugar spikes have on our bodies?
Right. So when we're talking about the role of movement, as we've talked about a little bit, and what that can do, when we're talking about grounding, and we're talking about modern day life, I'm going to ask you a question. In the summertime, and it might be different for you, but in the summertime, most people are wearing flip-flops or rubber soles. Is that true?
Most people, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Are you barefoot?
I'm a barefoot girl, but
I am too.
most people actually, and I'm not even gonna be nice about this. This is the mean Lisa coming out. I have been shamed for coming to someone's house and having sandals, but they want me to take my sandals off. But then what do you? Of course, you're gonna be barefoot, and they're like, ew, ew, you're gross, or don't put your feet oils on my hardwood floor. So I've absolutely had that. So
Well, the thing is when we're wearing our shoes and when we're, because it's running shoes, rubber boots in the winter, or it's flip-flops that have this much rubber on them in the summer, we're not touching our bodies, our feet. They're not touching the earth. They've got that space.
tire, it's like a tire.
Right. And it's like with all the condominiums and it's with all of the housing. I mean, it's not like you're walking, that everybody's walking out their back door and then they're actually on grass or the beach or the sand or going for nature walks in the trails behind them. So for us, in modern day, when we're looking at grounding, it's the absence of being connected with the earth itself, right? But there's many ways that we can help ourselves with grounding. There's many products out there, although I think the best one is actually being out in Mother Nature herself and being able to put your feet in the sand or in the water or being out in nature. I know we have a cottage, so it's always barefoot, doesn't matter. So there's the grass, there's the sand, there's the beach, all the above. But like, with the transportation systems, with our living and how condos are on the high rise, we're up in glass houses.
Yes.
Mhm.
A total random question just came to mind. Just as we are looking for grounding from the earth, from Gaia herself,
Yeah.
does she benefit? Does our planet benefit when we ground?
Oh, don't you think? When you
I
think
mean, I
about
feel
it, so
it.
when we're on grounded, okay, so the difference with grounding and being on grounded is the difference like this. Let's just put over here grounding and over here ungrounded. So you can put at ease or agitated.
Ooh,
Okay, so we're talking grounding and ungrounded. So we're talking at ease or agitated. We're talking happy and joyful, or we're talking stressed and chaotic, or we're talking organized, or we're talking unorganized. So with the grounding, it's really being centered with self and being able to be in the moment. And so when we have the stresses, especially of technology and our phones and, our tablets and our iPads and all the digital applications today, it's like just to be able to unplug and just be at ease, not on call every second. Very big difference with grounding and being ungrounded. Yeah.
Yes, the on-call thing is a big thing, because even though, I may walk away from I've committed myself when I walk the cats, I don't bring any devices. I go barefoot.
Right.
You're clearly bare pod. And
That's great.
we're doing our thing. But you're right, because in the back of our minds, have we committed to this grounding, to our experience with Mother Nature?
Right.
It's a commitment. And a question about sugars in that case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Very
very,
good. Yeah.
I'm going to jump. I'm jumping really big on this one because
Okay.
we're just going there.
I can jump with you.
Yeah, you're a good jumper.
I'm there. Just whatever. It's all good.
I was thinking about being tethered, and I was thinking about cravings. Then when somebody can push off, like, okay, I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to for this. And then an hour later, like, okay, no, I've held off. And then they've held off for 3 hours, which may be a huge success for them, but they're still going to have it in that time. Is that because of possibly this ungroundedness and the stress that we crave sugars? Are we craving energy? Are we craving balance, and we're looking towards foods that give us a boost in our sugar?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
And I'm going to say yes because the earth is filled with negative electrons, right? And so we need those, because when we have an imbalance, which was being ungrounded, an imbalance, and actually, which is why internal inflammation occurs, we need those negative electrons. We need that because the antioxidants in our body that are great free radical scavengers are not always available to us. But if we had that nutrition and if we had that balance, and grounding provides that for us, it could make such an impactful difference. I was reading a study in the recent weeks, and people with diabetes who had neuropathy that was significant used a grounding solutions. And when they were using these grounding solutions, within 8 weeks, a high percent of neuropathy was then something that they could no longer feel or very little of. So if it was on dial 10 on the volume, it would be down to like 2, and in some cases less. So if you're asking me about grounding, and if you're asking me about internal inflammation, those are grounding is like free flood of antioxidants in your body.
Right. Yes. And I love that you said that, because sometimes they're not available in our nutrition. We can make a lot of our beautiful things that we need. We do need to obtain a lot as well. But when we eat certain foods, we can actually destroy or use up so many that we're like, hey, wait a second, sugar molecule, how come you took that? That was mine.
Well, right. And it really depends on our digestive systems too, right? As you know.
Yes.
So
now, you yourself have diabetes.
I do.
And if you could just touch on your health for a moment here, because you do quite a few beautiful and easy. Some of them are easier. Some of them you had to incorporate into your lifestyle and go, oh, right, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to commit to my time. But
Right.
use you as the guinea pig example.
Sure.
Go. Okay.
Well, it comes over time and it comes with experience, right? But I remember, oh my goodness, I'm going to say about 29 years ago, when I was in a meditative group in the GTA area, and it was a nice big group. Well, one of the first things I learned back then was to not just breathing, not just deep diaphragmatic breathing to help you, center yourself and be grounded, and some visualization. But in addition to that, we would all have the opportunity to put our hands over a piece of metal of the tap and run cool water. I think we talked about this, right?
Yes.
So it's really like water is grounding, especially when you're living on high floors or working in office buildings. So just being able to put your hands and touch the metal of the tap and pour that water in your hands for 20, 30, 40 seconds up to a minute. That is very grounding. That's an element of Mother and Earth, right? So that's a very simple thing to do. Deep breathing is a pretty simple thing to do. Getting outside in nature, like letting the sun, like feel the sun, kiss your face, and hearing the waves of the water, or being on the grass and just watching the animals. Like those are all grounding things. But sometimes, like you said, you need to build that in to your lifestyle. So it's a conscious effort, because it's if you don't do it, you notice it when you're doing it. And if you're not doing it, then you know the internal inflammation accelerates. So you want to be able to build in a couple simple things. So journaling is one. And there are, yeah, like journaling, expressing, and just doing a random act of kindness. Just the other day, I was picking up something for someone in a drive-through, and no cars were letting in this other vehicle that you knew needed to get in, but no one was letting them in. So I stopped, I let them in. And actually, when I went through the drive-through to get what I needed to get and to pay for it, the person at the counter said, "No need to pay for this. The person in front of you paid for it." Now, what a random act of kindness. How would that make you feel? What would that do for you?
Oh my gosh. Yes, because they have, first of all, it's not even a matter of how much. They don't know what you're ordering, whether it's a coffee or a whole everything.
Yeah,
Anyway,
with
no limit.
nothing. And they were waiting. Actually, there was a place for cars to park
Right.
after you got through the drive-through. And so they were waiting at the end, and their window was rolled down. And so I rolled down my window and I graciously said, "Thank you so much." And they said, "No, thank you." And perfect stranger.
Oh.
But what does that do for the soul? And what does that do for, your spirit? And what does that do for your overall stress levels? It's like there's some really great people in the world.
That's right. And you know what? By you sharing that story, so I feel uplifted right now. There's beautiful hormones bouncing around in me now.
Right, right,
and and that lowers that stress, which lowers inflammation, which actually uses glucose in a healthy way,
right.
because I just got excited and happy, and then it burned off what all these things, and balancing levels. I love that you used that as such a beautiful example, because we don't recognize that if we had flipping that, and we don't need to stay negative, but flipping that, had somebody said, "Oh, look at her, she just let another person in, and now I'm gonna have to wait longer. That guy should have went into the back." Like, I can actually feel that, right? So let's
Right.
race that back to the beautiful pain for gifting, and that thank you that's exchanged. It really does so much for the earth, and in turn, I love that relationship that's both. So you mentioned that one easy tip. I love that about. So does it have to be metal tap? Do you, when you're feeling
Well,
water?
this is one example. I mean, there's so many of them, but one example is, yes, your hand to the metal, and your hands in cool water, which you can turn cooler. Now, another thing you can do that's really simple, and I would take a small one. You can actually put an ice cube in your hand. It's the sensation. Or I did one on my tummy the other day. So if you just yeah, so if you just take a small piece of ice, right? And it's the sensation, right? Another thing I love to do, I might even be able to show you here. Let me see if you can see through here. Yeah, you probably can. So another thing is
Oh,
like Mother Nature, an essential oil. It
yeah.
it's using your senses and breathing in these and applying them. These are all grounding, very grounding. As a matter of fact, you'll probably be happy to know, and I'm going to see if it's here, and here it is. I use this every day, and it is called grounding.
It's actually called
It's
grounding.
actually called grounding. I've been using it for 30 years,
Oh,
and I get this all the time, and I have one in my vehicle, and I have one in my purse, and I have one at the house.
it's
So
like
I never leave home without it. So it's
talk of grounding.
these are very simple things to do, but it's actually a matter of doing them.
Yes. You know, when you mentioned about, I love the oils that you brought that up, because one thing I do have nature around me. I'm very fortunate, and I've chosen to live that way. Is I'll go and I'm walking the cats, and I'll think, oh, this is, I don't know what this flower, plant, or tree is. So I do what most people would recognize doing with herbs. I actually go and I warm it up. I warm up the leaf, I warm up the plant, I warm it. And what I'm doing is I'm warming up the oils and I'm releasing them. And
Beautiful.
then I can smell them, and I'd be there in that present moment with the beautiful aroma, like the scent, and it changes because I just learned last year that not all pines, but most evergreens, most pine trees, and spruces, as they're growing their little tips, they're super like neon green. They're really bright,
Yes.
and they're loaded with vitamin C. And I love vitamin C. We all do. And so you can take those little tips and just eat them. You
Yes.
can eat
Yes.
them. So I saved so much money. I didn't have to buy arugula for a while. I just kind of toss them in my salad, and they're really cute. They look like little like Barbie pom-poms. I don't know. But anyways, they're like, but you have a little bit of pine, you have a little bit of citrus, you have that sourness that kind of wakes up all your something that Cheryl, would you say that grounding is also an awakening? It wakes you up.
I would say that grounding, I don't know that it would wake you up, but I think it would keep you centered. It would keep you, I think it would keep you aligned with your essence. So what I mean by that is your higher you, your inner you, your more of you, that part of you. I think it keeps you connected with what makes you drive. So I think it helps I think it helps to keep you present and reminded of
You're ready to go.
simplicity, yeah, of simplicity and of ease and of getting back to the basics, because that's all that really matters.
Okay, okay, huge word.
The balance of the basics are really what we need.
Yes, and when you said the word simplicity, that immediately went to, like, we make things so complicated, and
I get it.
the simplicity word was huge. Now, I do have a question because, oh, forgive me if I say this incorrectly, but Hashimoto's. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, thank gosh. Okay. So when I'm thinking of, I was going to say with simplicity, oftentimes we for some reason give up on our bodies and think, oh, it doesn't know how to do that, I better step in and help. Right? But really, if you just leave it alone, mostly our bodies know what to do. We know how to have our heart beating and our lungs to breathe and our colons to evacuate and all that good stuff. When it comes to something like Hashimoto's, you think, well, but wait a second, wouldn't my body know how to correct that? Or is there a way to at least support? It's not about, is it still about simplicity when it comes to things that our bodies should kind of know, but they kind of screw up?
Well, that when you mentioned that particular issue, and I actually happen to have Hashimoto's as well, so I totally get what that feels like. And it's interesting. It depends how abused that gland is or how deficient it is. But, in the natural elements of earth, iodine is, that's in our kelp and in our, plants. It's in our, sea greens. And that's natural, that's nature. So doing more, giving our bodies more of what it needs. Does our body know how to fix that? I think when I hear you ask that, what I think is when our bodies and our minds, how we have that chatter going on all the time in our minds. I think if we could interrupt that with pauses.
Oh, pauses.
And we could give our bodies chance to pause, that then our hormones, because the thyroid is all about thyroxine, T3, T4, and diabetes too, all about insulin, also another hormone, and the cortisols and things going on in our body. So I think if we take the pauses and, do that aerobic breathing and focus on the aerobic breathing, I think that helps to balance. But getting back to the Hashimoto's is a severe form of an inactive or underactive thyroid. So that's really at the end of the spectrum. But I think, and funny you should even mention it because you haven't seen me leave my seat, but here's some natural iodine drops from the elements. This is too funny because I use this every day in my water to help ground my thyroid.
Right. Oh, you're grounding your thyroid.
I am.
That's a beautiful way of saying that, as opposed to I'm fixing. I don't mind balancing. Balancing's good. However, it still implies in that kind of a language. Do you think our language really, I love words. I love the vibration of words. I think there's a groundedness to words. And so you're grounding your thyroid. That's, oh, and there she, I love that you're doing live on TV or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I've got my alkalized water, the best alkalized water in the world, that's full of microclusters that can actually get into your system, because most water
Oh,
trying to get into your system is like trying to get a basketball in a water hose. It just doesn't happen. So I have my alkalized water, and that's with a really wonderful system that we can talk about sometime. And then I have these wonderful iodine drops, and so I'm good. Yeah.
there's something that I love that I do believe, and I feel it, that our beautiful earth speaks to us if we listen, if we pause to
Yes.
listen. And I had an injury. I was dancing to Christmas carols a little bit too joyously while doing dishes, and I had my first ever knife accident, and it was a doozy. And I kind of like, and not like, it wasn't like I have been in the hospital all these times or everything. It wasn't like I would remember like, oh, iodine or all these things, but I did listen to hear what is it that would help me with the healing of this. And don't put I could almost hear, it's just nature. We're connected. And if we have that pause, which I love that you said, we have that pause to listen. And it's funny because I had I can't remember the guy's name. It's a certain kind of iodine. It's a guy's name, Iodine something. And I thought, oh, that's so weird. I would think about him. And so I put this iodine on and did some very natural healing to it. And it's beautiful now, and the nerves are all happy. But if we,
Right.
the heal, do you believe that if we don't listen, or if we're unable to listen, that healing would be difficult? And how can we
Yeah.
help the earth? Well, does the earth need to listen, or do we just need to shut up so the earth can hear?
You know what? That's a good point. So you asked a few questions there. So getting back to you on those, do I think that would help the earth? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look at this. Look at the smog that lifted in the city of Los Angeles when COVID started, and people could see through that valley for the first time in how long, and Mother Nature was given a break from those exhaust fumes and constant pollutants. I think that answers it right there.
I got goosebumps when you said that.
And Mother Nature is saying, thank you, the much needed break from the constant pounding against me. And so, yeah, I certainly think that does. And I think our universal consciousness, meaning the collective consciousness of people, because as you mentioned, vibrational, everything has an energy. It can be a high energy or a low energy. And low energy, the lowest energy is death, and the highest energy is joy. And you mentioned trees that you love, and there's fir trees, and there's so many wonderful natural Mother Nature things that are vibrating and oscillating at such a high frequency. That's what we want, because disease can occur in that state.
Right. Oh, what a beautiful way to wrap that up. Thank you for like offering that.
You're welcome.
Exactly. Disease is the absence of health. So, and
Well, traditionally it is.
tradition.
A traditional
Yes.
source may say it's the absence of disease, but health is so much more, because we're not here to get by day. We're here to be thriving and experiencing what life has to offer. And we want to walk into it and say, let's do this with all the vibrancy that we can have.
Yes, and in partnership. And I think in our show description is actually about dancing with movement and dancing with nature.
I like that. How nice.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I read it to you, I was like, I don't remember writing that, but it was wrong. I liked it too, because I thought, oh, let's go dance.
That's freeing. Isn't that freeing?
Yes, it is. It is. And if I may take the moment now, Cheryl, because you are just so experienced. You have knowledge from experience, and you have knowledge because you research, and you have knowledge because you teach. And I hope I'm not taking the job away from Kiara here, but I was going to say, I'd love for you to share how people could connect with you, because I am just so happy that I am connected with you, so I can ask you all these questions and have chit chats. But I think other people may feel like, I have an aunt with diabetes. I have a grandfather. I have I have a, diabetes. I'm worried. How could they reach out to you just about um, holistically healing themselves and working with their diabetes or a pre-diabetic system?
Oh, thank you, Lisa, for asking. They can reach me at Holistic Diabetes Solutions, and that's spelled with an H, holisticdiabetessolutions.com. And we actually have an email at info@holisticdiabetessolutions.com. We have a website, but we have something special happening within the next 7 days, actually.
Oh,
And can I share that?
yes, I was going to write it down. Yes.
Yes, we're actually having, and I'll only know this once I hear, because right now it's going through, and you're more than familiar with this, Lisa, it's going through the process of approval being uploaded. This course is going to be a free course. It's over 4 hours of a free course on diabetes, but it's not any course. It's the ultimate kickstart guide to normalizing your blood sugar levels naturally.
Oh, okay.
Free course. So if people want to find out about it, it's going to be free for 3 days over the next 10. I don't know the exact day, but if they want to find out more, they can come to holisticdiabetessolutions.com resources.
Okay, I love that, and I'm so happy that it is free because we could like start it, and as you just mentioned, as we begin to feel better, and we do feel better as we stabilize those spikes, and as we say,
Yeah.
as we ground the spikes and our own sugar spikes, we do feel better, and it's easier to be nicer to people. Like sometimes when we're in pain or uncomfortable, have cravings, or just we're unrested, it's we're not our best selves, and so we want to support the planet as we support ourselves. And so I'm so thank you for sharing that. Hello, Kara.
The other place, sorry, Lisa, can I just say one last thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the other place they can find us is in our free Facebook group with lots of free tips at Holistic Diabetes Solutions on Facebook. Just wanted to mention that.
Yes. Okay. I got to join that too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you both so much for bringing this amazing wisdom to Enlightened World Networks, One with the Earth. I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to participate in this amazing conversation. I had just one more question for you, Cheryl, because you are focused on diabetes and healing diabetes holistically. And most people think diabetes, and Lisa said this very well, most people think that diabetes is all about balancing blood sugar. And we think, oh, we can't eat sugar at all. One of the things that I studied is food healing. And my teacher said the way to reverse diabetes is you have 3 food groups. You have your fish, your vegetables, and your beans, and nothing else. And you have brought in some amazing insights to how we heal through our connection, and being connected to the earth is going to activate your body's ability to balance. And so I wonder if you could share with our audience and with me, if someone maybe is pre-diabetic and doesn't know it, what might they notice, and what would be like the first step for them to take?
Well, it's interesting, and thank you for asking. There are over 423 million people with pre-diabetes and diabetes, and half those people, Kara, don't know it. So most of those people have pre-diabetes, just like what you're saying. And some have type 2 because it can be very subtle. However, if we're looking at like, how do you know, or what should you do? If you, is your question more specifically about if you know you have pre-diabetes, or if you think you might?
It's more like, if you really don't know, what would you look for? What would you what would you look for? And maybe what would you do to avoid having to know, because you just kind of preempted?
Live differently, right? Well, okay, so the first thing I would say about anything to do with pre-diabetes is definitely, I would say, be looking at not just your food groups, to be honest, because it's more than that. And I think we all need a certain amount of sugar. But I will say this, the average a man has over 33 to 38 teaspoons of sugar a day, and our body can only handle 2 at a time. So if we know if we have more than 2 teaspoons of sugar, no matter if it comes from natural sources in beans or vegetables or fruits or other carbohydrates, that our body will go into overwhelm, because for 8 hours after we eat more than 2 teaspoons of sugar, our immune system shuts down. So I would say, like what you're saying with the food groups you were talking about, look at those foods that are natural and look at the foods that are lower in sugar with something called a low glycemic index. But the other thing I would say is keep moving and have fun. Do some Zumba. Do a great volleyball team. Do something that's fun. Get on your bicycle. And you know what I did not too long ago? I would never show this on live, but I tried to use the hula hoop because I used to do that so much as a kid. Not that I can do it right now, but my goal is for summer to be able to do it. Have fun. Have fun
Yes.
with the things and move. Just put on the tunes and have a great time. And the other thing I would suggest too, honestly, when it comes to being balanced and really getting those antioxidants in, because we don't really get as many as we need from our food, is to de-stress. And one of the ways to do that is out in nature, connecting with nature, with our bodies, with our senses, with our smells. So I would say
Mhm.
those 3 things.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely agree. I think we can get away with more inconsistencies in our diet if we're moving our body enough, and both are important, but I've definitely found that. Thank you so much for the amazing wisdom that you brought today, and you shared how to get in touch with you. I definitely invite everyone to reach out. And Lisa, what if people want to know more about your work? How should they get in touch with you?
I'm super easy. It's just email me at lisa@datingyourdiet.ca, or tune in on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Enlightened World Network's channel, The Enlightened Living. And always remember, you can't be eating if you're hula hooping.
That would be hard to do.
There you go. Thank you so much. I am so happy to be celebrating the launch of the Earth Channel. Cheryl, thank you so much. And Kara, you're such a wonderful
Thank
host.
you, Kira. Thank you, Lisa. You guys, like this was fun.
You.
This was just fun.
It was.
And thank you on behalf of Enlightened World Network and One with the Earth. Thank you to each and every one of you out there. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you.